Heels. That was the last thing I heard, the sharp, confident click of a woman's heels on wet asphalt, not hurried. Calm, like someone who had done everything they planned and was now heading home. I lay face down in the alley behind the Jade Garden restaurant on Huaihai Road, without the strength even to turn my head to watch her go. 3 broken ribs, I knew that right away, before I lost consciousness the first time. Something wrong with my shoulder, my lips split, my right eye so swollen I could only see a dark red blur through it. Her 2 men had worked professionally. No unnecessary words, no malice, just a job. 10 minutes ago, I had been sitting at a table in the restaurant with a glass of red wine waiting for Chen Yu. She was 20 minutes late, as always. I was used to it. She arrived looking beautiful. Black dress, hair pinned up, a 50,000 yuan smile. I stood to embrace her and felt something prick my neck. I didn't understand at first. I thought a draft. Something brushed me. Then my legs began to buckle. "Quiet," she said in my ear, very softly, almost tenderly. "Don't make a scene." Her men took me under each arm. From the outside, 2 friends helping a tipsy companion make his exit. I tried to call for help. My mouth felt stuffed with cotton. I tried to break free. My legs wouldn't obey. They walked me out through the kitchen, through the service door, into the alley. After that quick, I fell to my knees. The first blow landed on my ribs. I doubled over. The second hit my back. The third somewhere around my head. And after that, I stopped counting. It was all short, businesslike. And when they finished, they simply left, without a word. Then she came. I heard her stop beside me. She was silent for about 10 seconds. I could feel her gaze, that strange sensation when someone studies you like an object, not like a person, like an object that is no longer needed. Then the phone, her voice businesslike, nothing like the one she had used with me for 3 years. All clean. Yes, he signed. No, he won't be needed again. A click of a heel, then another, receding and darkness. I don't know how long I lay there. Maybe an hour, maybe 10 minutes. At some point, I realized I couldn't feel my own heartbeat, and it was strange, not frightening, just strange, as if someone had pulled the plug from the socket. Quiet, no pain, just silence inside. And then before my eyes, and I cannot explain this with any words, text appeared, white letters on a black background, sharp, like subtitles. Doubling system V1.0, initializing. User, Chen Yu current balance, 847 yen.
Start? Yes. No.
I thought a dying brain's hallucination. It happens. People see light at the end of a tunnel, angels, deceased relatives. I apparently was hallucinating the interface of a mobile app. That was even fitting. I had spent my whole life writing programs. Then my heart lurched, once, twice, began to beat unevenly, with a grinding sound, like an old engine in the cold. The text blinked, awaiting response. I could not move my hands. I could not speak. But inside, in the place that had been calm and quiet before, something took shape. Not a word, an intention. Yes, welcome. System activated. Transmitted by inheritor. Wei Gochan. Good luck, and it all disappeared. Only the asphalt against my cheek remained, the smell of rain, the distant sound of cars on Huaihai Road, and 847 yen in my account. A restaurant cleaning woman found me. The ward held 4. 2 neighbors, an elderly man with a bandaged leg and a young guy recovering from appendicitis who stared at his phone constantly, paid me little attention. The 3rd bed was empty. Apparently someone had just been discharged. The orderly, a woman of about 50, with a tired face and very kind hands, changed my IV drip and asked if there was anyone to call. I thought. No parents. My father died 7 years ago. My mother 8 years ago. Both early, both of heart failure. Uncle Wei, the only relative I knew. But Uncle Wei, as it turned out, had died himself the day before yesterday. Friends, those who had been real ones, had scattered after university. Beijing, Guangzhou, one had gone to Canada. Business partners, none left. I had sold the company and the team had dispersed. Chen Yu. I smirked and immediately winced from the pain in my lip. 3 broken ribs, loss of consciousness, possibly clinical death for 47 seconds according to the doctor who examined me during the night, and no one to call. This was not a tragedy. It was simply an honest inventory. There's no one, I told the orderly. Thank you. She looked at me with that particular pity found in kind people when they see someone whose life has gone very wrong but who is holding together. At least eat something, she said. Lunch in an hour. All right. She left. I lay and stared at the ceiling, thinking not about Lin, not about the money, not about what had happened, thinking about Uncle Wei. Strange thing, the death of a man I had barely known, and yet he was the one I thought about. The last postcard had arrived a week ago. A simple card with a view of the sea, the kind sold at every tourist stand in coastal towns. On the back, one paragraph, as always. Uncle never wrote at length. A fish does not swim against the current for no reason. It waits for the current to change. Wait for yours. It is already near. I had read it then and set it aside. Another piece of Uncle's wisdom, a little obscure, a little poetic. He always wrote that way. I had grown used to treating his postcards as something between philosophical advice and a letter from an odd distant relative with time to spare. Now I thought, what if this wasn't wisdom? What if it was an instruction? The current is already near. The system flickered before my eyes, quietly, awaiting next command. Balance, 847 yen. Tips, unavailable. Act on your own. I smirked again. Uncle, you created a system that gave me minimum explanation and maximum responsibility. Logical. Lunch arrived an hour later. Rice porridge with egg and some greens. Not tasty, but I ate everything. My body demanded food. I listened. Then I fell asleep unexpectedly, in the middle of the day, and slept 4 hours without dreams. I woke when it was already getting dark outside. The orderly's phone lay on the bedside table. She had left it. A kind woman. I picked it up, opened the browser, began searching. Wei Gochan, Fujian, fish market, death. Nothing. No news. No obituary. As if the man had never existed, which confirmed one thing. Uncle knew how to stay hidden, even in death. The ambulance was called. In the hospital I came to with an IV in my arm and the orderly watching me with pity, the way people look at stray dogs. 3 broken ribs. 2nd-degree concussion, dislocated shoulder, split lip, closed with 3 sutures. I asked for a phone. The orderly lent me hers, an old Huawei with a cracked screen. I opened the banking app. Balance, 847 yen. I stared at that number for a long time. 847 yuan. 4 million ground to dust, over 3 years, piece by piece. So gradually, I hadn't even noticed. First investments into the fund, then operating expenses, then temporary difficulties. Then I'll pay it all back, trust me. 847 yuan. I looked up at the ceiling, white, institutional, with a yellow water stain in the corner, and laughed, quietly, so as not to disturb my ribs. But I laughed genuinely, for the first time in a very long time, because it was funny. Objectively, coldly, mathematically funny. To spend 3 years of my life, to sell a business I had built over 7 years, and come out with 847 yuan and 3 broken ribs. This was not a tragedy. This was a comedy of errors. And I knew exactly one thing with absolute certainty. While I lay in that alley, while my heart stopped and started again, while the system was activated, or I thought it was, I would remember every click of those heels. The phone vibrated in my hand, an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Figured it was spam, but something made me press the button. Mr. Chen Yu, a woman's voice. Dry, businesslike, without unnecessary inflection. My name is Wei Mei. I am executive director of the Wei Gochan Inheritance Fund. Wei Gochan passed away the night before last. You are the sole heir. Please come to our office to sign the documents. I said nothing. Mr. Chen? I hear you, I said. My lips stung with every word. 3 sutures making themselves known. The amount of the inheritance. A pause. Slight surprise in the pause. Apparently people usually begin with condolences. 200 million yuan in liquid assets, plus stakes in 7 companies, plus archival materials passed directly to you. I looked at the ceiling again. The yellow water stain. 200 million yuan. Uncle Wei, you smelled of fish and sent postcards once a year from Fujian province. The last time I saw you was 12 years ago at my father's funeral. You stood apart, said nothing, left before everyone else. Tomorrow, I said. Send the address to this number. Mr. Chen, are you all right? Your voice sounds perfectly fine. Until tomorrow. I disconnected, returned the phone to the orderly, lay back on the pillow. Before my eyes, quietly, almost imperceptibly, a line blinked. Balance. Up 80 yeed. 847 yen. Awaiting. I closed my eyes, Uncle Wei. You were always a strange old man, but it seems you knew something I did not. Wei Mei's office was in the Lujiazui business district, 23rd floor, river view, glass and steel. A place that spoke for itself, serious people doing serious things here. I arrived in hospital clothes. I had no others. What I had been wearing that night had been thrown away. Over the hospital pajamas, I wore a jacket borrowed from my ward neighbor, an elderly engineer, a kind man. The jacket was 2 sizes too small and smelled of tobacco. My ribs were taped, my shoulder immobilized, my left eye still half swollen. The receptionist at the entrance looked at me as if I had the wrong address. Chen Yu, I said. Here to see Wei Mei. A pause. A check of the list. A surprised look. Apparently heirs to 200 million usually look different. Go right in. Wei Mei turned out to be a woman of about 32 with a short haircut and the gaze of someone accustomed to assessing situations quickly and accurately. She stood when I entered, saw my face and froze for half a second, then collected herself. Please sit down. Can I get you water? Coffee, if possible. She nodded to the secretary. We sat across from each other. She studied me, not rudely, not conspicuously, but I felt the gaze, professional, evaluating. Do you know what happened to you? She asked directly. I know. Is it connected to the inheritance? No. Different people, different story. She was silent a moment, then she took out her tablet. Wei Gochan left me an instruction, she said. If you come within 48 hours of the call, I may proceed. If not, the archive is destroyed and the inheritance goes to a charitable foundation. You came within 18 hours. An interesting condition. He said that a man who would not come within 48 hours was either too busy with other people's affairs or too frightened by his own. He needed neither one. Coffee was brought. I took the cup, had a sip. Wei Mei watched. He spoke about you often, she said. Strange for a man who had seen his nephew once in 12 years. What did he say? The boy knows how to read people. He just doesn't know yet that he does. She said it without inflection, like a quotation. And he doesn't need instructions. He needs a tool. I set down the cup. What is the black book? Wei Mei showed no surprise at the question. She opened her laptop, turned the screen toward me. Wei Gochan spent 40 years in the shadows of Shanghai business, she said. Officially, a small fish trader from Fujian. Unofficially, one of the most informed men in the financial world of this city. He never dealt in information. He simply collected it for 40 years. On the screen, an encrypted archive opened. Folders, many folders. 43 personal dossiers, Wei Mei continued. 27 corporate ones. 3,000 documents, correspondence, contracts, bank statements, photographs, audio recordings, all obtained legally through his network of contacts over 4 decades. A pause. Some of the materials are sufficient to initiate criminal proceedings. Some civil suits, some simply to destroy a reputation. I studied the screen. Why didn't he use them? He said, why use a cannon against sparrows? He was waiting for a moment when it would be truly necessary. Wei Mei looked at me directly. It seems the moment has arrived. Tell me about the rest, I said. Not about Fan, about everyone in the book. I want to understand the logic, why Uncle collected these particular people. Wei Mei leaned back in her chair, thought genuinely, not for show. He had a principle, she said. He only collected those who had caused real documented harm to real people. Not just the wealthy, not just the powerful, those who used the system to harm those who could not defend themselves. Selectively, very. He could have gathered material on hundreds of people. He gathered it on 43. She opened the list. Here, for example, number 9, a developer who deliberately bankrupted homeowners associations to buy land for demolition. 3,000 families lost their savings. Number 23, a pharmaceutical distributor who falsified expiration dates. Number 5. A man who spent 15 years defrauding government support programs for small businesses. Hundreds of entrepreneurs received funds, invested them, and found that the terms had been deliberately structured to seize collateral. I listened. Uncle was not a hunter of villains, Wei Mei continued. He was an archivist of injustice. He documented, stored, in case someone someday would be able to use it. And that someone turned out to be me. Apparently. Why me specifically? I asked. Not you, not Li Boyan, not someone with experience with the right connections from the start. Wei Mei was quiet. Because you have no history, she said. Everyone already in this system. They have reputations, partners, obligations. They cannot act freely. Every move is checked 10 layers back. She looked at me. You are new, unburdened, without obligations. A blank slate, with 847 yuan, with 847 yuan, and 40 years of archives, she corrected. Those are different things. I considered this. Uncle was taking a risk, I said. He didn't know what I would become. I could have used the book wrongly, sold it, destroyed it, used it for personal ends without discrimination. Yes, he was taking a risk, and you accepted that risk too. You stayed to work for a stranger. I accepted Wei Gochan's judgment, she said. In 12 years, I never once saw him misjudge a person, not once. A short pause. I'm not saying he was always right. I'm saying about people, always. I looked at her. That is a great deal of trust. Yes. Thank you, I said. She was slightly surprised, hadn't expected that. Then nodded. Simply nodded. Then let us continue, I said, and opened the next folder. I need one folder. Lin Xiaoyu. Wei Mei didn't change expression. She opened the search. Found it. I read for a long time. Her birth name, Zhang Xiaoyu. Changed it 3 years ago. Heiress of the Liang family, a family that doesn't exist. 4 previous victims. The first 3 lost money, withdrew, preferred to stay quiet out of shame. The 4th, Mr. Liu, 54, lost more than money. A heart attack 1 month after he realized what had happened. He survived, but barely.
5th victim, me.
I closed the folder. Wei Mei watched me carefully, waiting for a reaction. Anger, tears, anything. I picked up my coffee, took a sip. It had gone cold. Show me the folder on Wang Jiangguo, I said. You know that name? He was Lin's partner in my case. He signed the papers from their side. Wei Mei opened another folder. I read faster. I already knew what to look for. Wang Jiangguo, 45. A fat, self-satisfied man with connections at City Hall. 2 officials he regularly sent gifts to. Money passed through his company. Officially consulting. In reality, a conduit for money laundering. Is there correspondence with Lin here? Enough for a criminal case. I nodded. Before my eyes, quietly, almost imperceptibly, lines appeared. Opponent identified. Wang Jiangguo. Available data. Sufficient. Activate bet. I didn't rush. Wei Mei, I said. Why are you here? Wei Gochan is dead. The money passes to me. You could simply have handed over the documents and left. She was silent. For the first time during our meeting, the pause was not businesslike. Personal. I worked for him for 12 years, she said at last. He didn't pay me above market rate. He didn't give me high-profile cases. He never said thank you, considered it self-evident. A small pause. But he trusted me absolutely, without conditions. For the first time in my life, someone trusted me absolutely. I looked at her. He said, after me, work for you, for the same reason. You don't know me. He knew. That's enough for me. I held her gaze for another moment, then returned to the screen. Then let's begin. I need the Securities Commission, a fraud complaint with documentation today. It's already midnight. Tomorrow morning, first thing. Wei Mei nodded, opened a new document, started typing. I took out my phone, looked at the balance, then again at the system's lines before my eyes. Pressed yes. Bet accepted. Opponent. Wang Jiangguo. Potential return. X2. Timer. 4800 probability of win. 71%. 29% chance of failure. Almost a third. Uncle Wei, you could have just left money. Why not something simpler? I put away the phone. Tell me about all 43 people, I said to Wei Mei. I want to understand what I'm working with. She glanced at the clock. This will take several hours. I have 48 hours, I said. Let's start. Wang Jiangguo loved to celebrate. I understood this from the dossier back in Wei Mei's office, a man who marked every success extravagantly. Closing a contract, a party. A partner's birthday, a party. Just Friday, a party. He rented restaurants, invited people, gave toasts, and was happy. My deal with Lin through his shell company had closed 2 weeks ago, meaning he had already celebrated, or was celebrating right now. Wei Mei found out within 30 minutes this Saturday. Wang was holding a business dinner at the Dragon and Phoenix restaurant on Nanjing Road. 20 people, private room, imported wine, table price 6,000 yuan. I had 8 hours left before the timer ran out. I arrived without an invitation. The guard at the entrance was trained to stop unwanted guests, but not trained to stop a man with the air of someone who was expected there. I walked past him with a confidence I didn't feel. My shoulder ached under the bandage. My ribs throbbed with every breath, but outwardly I held myself steady. I found the hall. Wang Jiangguo sat at the head of the table, flushed with wine and pleasure, loud, glass in hand. Around him, business partners, a couple of officials in civilian clothes, several women with professional smiles. I walked in. Wang noticed me on the 3rd second. The glass froze halfway to his mouth, a second of silence. Then he set down the glass, slowly, carefully, as if he needed that time to decide what to do. His face looked as if he'd seen a ghost. In a sense he had. Then he decided, smiled. "Chen," he said loudly, with exaggerated warmth, glancing at his guests. "What a surprise. How did you get here?" "Passing through," I said. Several guests exchanged glances. Someone sensed the tension. It was in the air, like ozone before a storm. Wang stood, came toward me under his breath, keeping the smile for the room. "What gives you the right to walk in here?" "Sit down, Wang Jiangguo," I said quietly, but so the nearest guests could hear. "Or I'll say everything I have to say while standing, and it will be uncomfortable." His smile froze, but he sat. He had no choice. Standing now would already have been an admission. He had something to hide. I took out the tablet, placed it face up on the table in front of him. On the screen, screenshots of messages. His correspondence with Lin Xiaoyu, detailed enough and direct enough. People confident in their impunity usually don't guard themselves in private messages. Did he sign? He signed 4 million clean. When's my cut? As always after the disappearance. Wang stared at the screen. His face stopped being red, turned gray. Then he tried to collect himself. "This is fabricated," he said quietly. "You can't prove anything. You don't have—" "A complaint was filed with the Securities Commission today at 9:47 a.m., I said. "Here is the registration number." I scrolled on the tablet. "Accepted for review at 10:23. Wang stared at the number. His fists under the table I couldn't see but heard the chair creak. "You don't have full evidence." "There are bank statements from your shell company over the past 3 years, I said. "There are testimony from Mr. Liu, your 4th joint victim with Lin." He decided to talk. I looked at him calmly. "And there's something else of interest, but that's for the investigators, not for you." The guests at the table had stopped pretending not to listen. A woman across from Wang quietly picked up her purse and moved further away. "Smart woman." "You," Wang began. "Not you, thou," I corrected him. "We were on a first-name basis. You suggested it yourself at our first meeting. Remember?" His face contorted. "You won't have time to do anything. I have connections. One phone call and I—" "Make the call," I said. "It will be interesting to see which of your City Hall friends picks up when their names are already in the case files." Silence. I put away the tablet, picked up Wang's glass from the table, the same one he had set down so carefully a minute ago. Had a sip. The wine was good. "Good evening," I said, and walked out. Behind me, first silence, then someone's question, half-voiced. "Who was that?" And more quietly, someone's reply I could no longer make out. Outside, it was drizzling, that October Shanghai rain that is neither a downpour nor a mist, but something in between, unpleasant seeping under your collar. I stood at the restaurant entrance and breathed system. Timer 00711. Probability 74% finalizing. 7 minutes left. I had made it. I waited for the rain to ease up a little. Took out my phone, my own, bought with the inherited money. A decent device now, not the orderly's Huawei. Wrote to Wei Mei. Complaint accepted. Wang knows. Reaction panic under a mask of composure. She replied within a minute. Tomorrow morning he'll get some unpleasant calls. His lawyer is good, but there's too much material. Then she added, have you eaten today? A strange question from someone I'd known a week.
No, I wrote honestly.
The restaurant on the first floor of your hotel is open until midnight, she replied. The Peking duck there is decent. Zhou Da had read through the flash drive materials that same night. I knew by the way he wrote at 3 in the morning. This is big. Exactly that. No punctuation, no capitals, just 3 words at 3 a.m. I replied, I know, get some sleep. Him, can't. Listen, is the 4th victim still alive? Me, yes. Still quiet for now. Him, got it. When can we talk in detail? Me, tomorrow, not before 11. He showed up at 9:30. I had expected that. You said not before 11. I reminded him when I opened the hotel room door. That was a request, not an order. He came in, put down his bag, took out his laptop. Listen, I've been thinking all night. Here's the thing, there are 2 ways to run this material. I sat on the bed, crossed my arms. Go ahead. First, standard journalism. Fraudster, victims, scheme, everything by the book, all legally clean. Runs in our publication. Major outlets pick it up. 1 or 2 days of noise. He opened his laptop. Second, a series, stretched over time. Each piece strikes a specific target. First, Lin and her victims. Second, Wang and his connections. Third, Fan. Each piece runs at the moment of maximum pressure on each of them. The second, I said. I thought so. He started typing, but then I need more. I need all 4 victims on the record. I need bank documents officially verified. I need a source at the commission I can call for comment. 3 victims have confirmed, I said. The 4th hasn't yet. Bank documents Wei Mei will provide. Source at the commission through Li Boyan. Zhou Da typed quickly. 1 more question, he said, not looking up. Are you willing to give an interview yourself? Name? Face? I thought for a second. When the time comes. What time? When Fan is under investigation, I said. Not before. Until then, I don't need publicity. Zhou Da finally looked up. You're a very careful man for someone who had 847 yuan 3 weeks ago, especially because of that. He smirked. Fine. Deal. I write. You tell me when to publish. He extended his hand. But I want the first big interview when all this is over. I shook it. Deal. I looked at the message. Smiled carefully, trying not to disturb the suture on my lip. Went to eat the duck. The restaurant was almost empty at that hour. A couple of business travelers at the bar, an elderly couple in the corner. I sat by the window, ordered duck and tea, looked at the wet street. Thought about Wang, about how his face had changed color, red, gray, greenish, about what he was doing right now, probably calling his lawyer, calling his city hall contacts, drinking something strong and telling himself it would blow over. It would not blow over. Thought about how this was the first real victory, but not the last. That behind Wang stood Lin, behind Lin, Fan, behind Fan the last page of the book I knew nothing about yet. The duck came genuinely good, with thin pancakes and sauce. I ate slowly, without hurrying. For the first time in many weeks, I ate slowly and without hurrying. Result of round 1. Wang Jianguo neutralized return, in progress balance updating. First one, I raised my cup of tea. No one to clink with, there was no one. Just drank. For you, Uncle Wei, wherever you are. Before my eyes, in rhythm with my steps. Timer, 001433. Probability, 71%, 74%. Status, bet active. 14 minutes until the timer ran out. I had made it. On the street, I stopped, leaned against the wall, and allowed myself 30 seconds, just breathing. My ribs throbbed. My shoulder burned. The adrenaline was fading. The phone vibrated. Wei Mei, the commission has accepted the complaint, she said without preamble. Tomorrow morning, Wang will be getting some unpleasant calls. I know. I just came from him. A pause. You were at his party? Yes. Without warning? A forewarned Wang is a different conversation. A long pause. Mr. Chen, said Wei Mei slowly, and there was something new in her voice. Not warmth. No, she was not the type to warm quickly, but something. Wei Gochan was right about you. In what sense? In the sense that you know how to read people? And in the sense that you didn't know you knew. She disconnected. Before my eyes, the timer lines quietly went out. In their place, round 1 complete. Next opponent identified. Ready? I put away the phone. No, not yet. I had something to do first. I needed to learn everything about the man standing behind Lin Xiaoyu. Her coffee shop was called 3 Beans and was located in the Tianzifang Lane, that same labyrinth of old shikamen houses that tourists loved to photograph, and locals loved because delivery couriers never made it there. I found it by accident, or more likely, the system had led me to it. I was walking through the lane after meeting with Wei Mei, my head full of numbers and names from the black book, and I simply wanted coffee. I walked into the first place I passed. She was standing behind the counter, wiping a cup. Small, about 24, hair in a loose bun, a white apron with a coffee stain on the pocket. She looked up, and I stopped in my tracks. Her face, not identical to Lin Xiaoyu. Similar. The same cheekbones, the same eyes with a slight upturn at the corners, but everything else was different. Where Lin had the precision of a porcelain mask, here was liveliness. Where Lin had a smile she could switch on and off like a light, here was a smile that happened on its own. What can I get you? She asked. I didn't answer for a moment. Americano. Double. Have a seat. It'll be a minute. I sat by the window, watched her work quickly, confidently, clearly someone who loved this. The coffee shop was small and cozy, 5 tables, all taken. A neighborhood place, not a tourist spot, students, elderly people, a young couple with books. She brought the coffee, set it down, noticed I had been watching her a little too intently. She frowned. Something wrong? No, everything's fine. She stood for a moment, appraisingly, not frightened, then nodded and went to the other tables. I took out my phone, wrote to Wei Mei, Lin Xiaoyu, relatives. The reply came 8 minutes later. Younger half-sister, Lin Xiaohui, 24. Different father, different life. Works in a coffee shop in Tianzifang, apparently unaware of her sister's schemes. Verified. I put away the phone, had a sip of coffee. Good coffee. Strong, not bitter. She knows her craft. Something unpleasant stirred inside me. Not sympathy, no. I had no resources for sympathy right now. More like an awareness that the story was more complicated than it had seemed. In a simple revenge story, everyone is on one side of the barricade. In a complicated one, there are people who simply ended up in the wrong place with the wrong people. For my eyes, the system was silent. No hints, no percentages, only a calm, dark background. I finished my coffee, left enough bills on the table stood. Good coffee, I said, passing the counter. She nodded. Simply nodded. No professional smile, no unnecessary words. Just a person who had accepted a compliment. I went out. On the street, I stopped. Looked at the sign. 3 Beans, memorized the address. The unpleasant feeling wouldn't go away. 3 weeks after the forum, a new visitor appeared at 3 Beans. I noticed him immediately, not because he seemed suspicious, more the opposite, too inconspicuous. Dressed ordinarily, sitting with a book, ordered green tea, and didn't hurry. An ordinary person in an ordinary coffee shop, but he had come exactly when I came, and left exactly when I left. The next day again, different clothes. Same book. I wrote to Wei Mei, description, time, place. She replied 2 hours later. Private detective. License registered to a company listed among Golden Dragon's clients. Fan was watching. I thought about this all evening. Surveillance, not an attack. This was reconnaissance, meaning he was not yet certain of the full scope of what he had run into. He was looking for information. I called Li Boyan. I'm being watched, I said. Fan's people. Expected. A pause. What are you doing? Nothing. Let them watch. They'll see a man going to a coffee shop, working in a hotel, meeting with a lawyer. Nothing interesting. They won't find the black book. It's in an encrypted cloud. Access from only 2 specific devices. A pause. Li Boyan. They shouldn't be seen around you either. Your offices, already checked. Clean, good. I disconnected, looked out the window. An ordinary street. Nobody suspicious. Maybe they were outside. Maybe they had already left. System.
Wanding. Active opponent surveillance.
Recommendation. Continue normal routine. Behavioral changes will arouse suspicion. A sound recommendation. The most suspicious thing I could do was start acting suspiciously. I picked up my phone, wrote to Lin Xiaohui. I'll be there tomorrow morning. Keep the window table free if possible. She replied, okay. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is simply drink coffee by the window as if nothing is happening. The name appeared on the third night. I was staying in a hotel, had rented a room with the inherited money. The first thing I'd spent. A modest hotel. Clean, without excess. Wei Mei had offered an official apartment from the estate's assets. I declined. I didn't want to live in someone else's space until I had figured out what was what. We worked every evening. I read dossiers, asked questions. Wei Mei answered. By the third night, I had a rough map of Shanghai business. Who owed whom, who feared whom, who worked for whom. And at the center of that map, one name appeared more often than any other. Mr. Fan Jianming, 55. Managing partner of the Golden Dragon Investment Company, officially a mid-tier player. Not in the top rankings, not in the social pages. A man who preferred the shadows, but the threads. Threads ran from him, thin, nearly invisible, like spider silk, to Lin Xiaoyu, to Wang, to 4 more names in the black book. He was never in the foreground, always third or fourth tier, always through intermediaries. Did you long suspect someone stood behind Lin? I asked Wei Mei. Uncle Wei knew for certain. She opened a folder. Here, 8 years ago, Fan began building a network. Lin was his best tool, beautiful, intelligent, without personal ambitions of her own that might spin out of control. He paid her well. She didn't know the full picture. What is the full picture? The money Lin extracted went to Fan's holding company, through several layers, but it went. He used it for. Wei Mei paused. For investments he couldn't make officially. Gray markets. Nothing criminal on a large scale, but things that couldn't be exposed. Does he know about Wang being under investigation? He found out yesterday. Judging by activity in the network, he's calm. Wang is expendable to him. And I? Wei Mei was quiet a moment. You are a new factor he hasn't assessed yet, she said. He doesn't know about the inheritance, doesn't know about the black book. To him, you are just another of Lin's victims who for some reason isn't lying quietly. Good, I said. Let him think that for now. Before my eyes, the system showed Fan's folder. It blinked. Then, insufficient data for activation. Continue gathering. I closed the folder. Stood, stretched. My ribs were aching tolerably now. They should heal properly in a week. Wei Mei, Li Boyan. She showed slight surprise at the question, barely perceptible. He called you?
No.
But his name appears next to Fan's in 3 places, and next to Uncle's in 5. They knew each other, she said. Li Boyan and Wei Gochan. I don't know the details. Uncle rarely spoke of people he trusted, only of those he didn't. So Li Boyan is in the first category, apparently. I nodded. Find him. I need a meeting. Li Boyan arranged to meet on neutral ground, a tea house in the old Zhuhui neighborhood, one of those places where no one is in a hurry and no one listens to others' conversations because everyone has their own. I arrived first, took a corner table, ordered oolong, and waited. He came exactly on time, tall, lean, in a dark business suit without extra detail, about 40 or perhaps slightly older. His face was the kind that is hard to remember on first sight, not unattractive, just neutral. Trained neutrality, the kind belonging to someone who had long since learned not to reveal what he was thinking. He sat, looked at the bruise under my eye, still not fully faded, said nothing about it. Chen Yu, he said. Not a question, a statement. Li Boyan, you look like your father, he said. I saw you once as a child. You were about 8. You knew my father? A little. I knew your uncle better. He picked up the menu, flipped through it without interest, set it aside. Did Wei Gochan leave you a note with my name? No. I found your name myself, in several places. That, it seemed, pleased him more than if I had said yes. "What do you know about Mr. Fan?" I asked directly. Lee Boyan poured himself tea, slowly, set down the teapot. "Enough," he said. "Me too. I want to know more." "Why?" "Because he stands behind the man who left me to die in an alley." Lee Boyan looked at me, at length, without hurrying, assessing. "I didn't rush him. 15 years ago," he said at last. "Fan ran a scheme with a pension fund, a small regional fund, 3,000 beneficiaries, factory workers from Suzhou. Fan was the consultant. He siphoned the money out through a chain of instruments, technically legal, in practice, theft. The fund went bankrupt. People lost their savings. Were you in that fund?" A long pause. "I was 26, said Lee Boyan. "Just starting out. I had put everything I'd saved over 4 years into it. I said nothing. Then I rebuilt," he continued, evenly, slowly, with difficulty. "Now I'm doing well, but I haven't forgotten. Uncle had material on that scheme." Lee Boyan set down his cup, looked at me. "I know," he said. "Wei Gochan told me he was collecting it. He said, 'When the time comes, I'll pass it to whoever needs it.' The time has come." Then, Lee Boyan allowed himself something like a smile, slight, barely visible. "He was right about you." "Everyone says that," I said. "It's beginning to get old." Lee Boyan laughed, briefly, genuinely, then was serious again. "What are you proposing?" "Partnership. I give you access to the material on Fan from Uncle's archive. You give me a network of contacts and market knowledge I don't have. We move together, but each handles their own piece." "Why do you trust me?" "I don't," I said honestly. "But we have a common opponent. For now, that's enough." Lee Boyan nodded slowly. "Reasonable." He picked up his cup again. "One condition. I am not a tool. I am a partner with an equal voice in decisions that concern me."
Agreed. Then we have a deal.
He set down his cup. "Where do we start?" "With the forum," I said. "Lin Xiaoyu is speaking at a financial forum in 2 weeks. I want to be there. And I want you to be there too." Lee Boyan nodded, stood, straightened his jacket. "Tell me about Fan," I said. "Not about the pension fund scheme. About him as a person. How he thinks, how he makes decisions, what matters to him." Lee Boyan looked up. "Why?" "Because attacking a scheme is one thing. Attacking a person is another. For the second, you need to understand who he is." Lee Boyan studied me for a moment, then nodded, slowly, the way someone nods who has made an internal decision. "Fan is intelligent," he said. "Not brilliant. Intelligent. There's a difference. Brilliant people make beautiful moves. Intelligent people make correct ones. Fan always makes the correct ones. So difficult. Very." Lee Boyan turned his cup in his hands. "But he has a weakness. One. A serious one." "What?" "He cannot accept defeat until the defeat has become obvious to everyone. Internally, he won't acknowledge it. He keeps thinking the situation can still be reversed when there's nothing left to reverse." A pause. "This is not overconfidence. It's the structure of his thinking. He literally cannot stop fighting when he believes there's still a chance. And how do you use that? Create a situation in which he sees no threat, until the threat is already behind him," said Lee Boyan. "Give no warning. Give no signals. Work quietly, beneath the surface, and strike when he is certain everything is under control." I thought about this. "How did he handle your pension fund?" Lee Boyan set down his cup. "He came to a shareholders meeting," he said, calm, well-dressed. "Said the fund was showing excellent results, that the next quarter would be exceptional, that he personally recommended buying more units." His voice became quiet, not emotional, simply quiet. 2 weeks later, the fund closed. The money disappeared through 3 transfers to shell companies. Technically, all legal. In practice, 3,000 people lost everything, and he was never held accountable. Never. Lee Boyan looked at me. "Because he is intelligent, not brilliant. Intelligent. But Uncle has material." "Uncle was a very attentive man," said Lee Boyan. "He found what everyone else had missed. One signature. One document from which a direct link follows." A pause. "Is that enough?" "For the regulators, enough," I said. "For court, we'll see. But for a reputational strike, definitely enough." Lee Boyan nodded. "You think quickly." "I sold software for 7 years," I said. You learn to think fast when a client is unhappy and wants their money back. Something at the corner of his mouth twitched, nearly a smile. Good, he said. Then here is a condition of the partnership I didn't name before. I'm listening. When all this is over, the materials on the pension fund must be made public, not just used against Fan in court, publicly. Those 3,000 factory workers from Suzhou, many of them have no wealthy children, no lawyers, no way to know they were deliberately robbed. They think the fund simply went bankrupt. That happens. A pause. They need to know. I looked at him. That complicates things. Publicity will attract Fan's lawyers' attempts to block.
I know. And you still insist.
I insist. I thought for a second, then nodded. Agreed. Li Boyan was the first to stand, held out his hand. I shook it. A good handshake, firm, without excess. The handshake of someone accustomed to keeping their word. Until we meet again, Chen Yu. Until we meet again. He left. I finished my tea. Before my eyes, the system updated the map, added a new element next to my name. Green ally. For the first time in this story, something was green. There was one thing I did every evening, not for business. I reread Uncle's postcards. There were 12, one per year. I found them in Wei Mei's archive. She kept everything related to Uncle, including copies of correspondence he had sent. Ordinary postcards. Cheap, touristy. Different views, sea, mountains, an old town. On the back, neat small handwriting, always one paragraph. The first, when I was 16. Remember that wealth is not money. Money is a tool. Wealth is what you can do with the tool. The second, at 20. Don't rush to sell what you've built. The price you're offered today is not the final price. The third, at 22. The people you trust test not with words but with actions. Words are cheap. Actions are costly. I read them in order every evening. Some I understood differently now. What had seemed like general advice from an elder relative now read like specific guidance. He didn't know the details of my life. Couldn't know. We had barely kept in touch. Yet he wrote so precisely that it seemed he knew. Perhaps not the details, but the structure. The 9th postcard, I was 25, had just opened my own company. When they tell you you're too small, don't argue. Small is invisible, and the invisible can do what the visible cannot afford to. The 10th, 27. Information you hold and don't use grows in value every day until the right moment comes. The 11th, 29. Find people who choose the right thing when it costs them. They are rare. Hold on to them. The last, the one from a week ago, about the fish and the current. I would close the laptop with the postcards and think he had been writing to me all his life. Not at length, not in detail, but writing. Every year, one paragraph, 12 years, 12 lessons, and I had read them as postcards from an odd relative. Uncle, forgive me. I understood too late, but I understood. The new Shanghai Financial Forum was held every September at the Mandarin Oriental. 3 days, 400 delegates, Forbes-tier speakers, press, evening banquets, a place where money meets money. Lin Xiaoyu spoke on the 4th day, a special session called Opportunities in Private Investment. More intimate in format, a room of 80 people, prospective investors. This was where she worked, not for a broad audience, but for specific people with specific money. I entered the hall 2 minutes before it began, found a seat in the front row, the last one free. Sat down, system. The system showed her profile, probability assessment, and timer. I bought 2 buns from an old man on the corner, ate them on the way. Good buns, Uncle Wei. You lived in the province and traded fish. I wonder if you had buns like these in the mornings. Joda hadn't changed since university. Same glasses with the wide frame. Same habit of speaking half a tone louder than necessary. Same eternal coffee in a cheap paper cup. Only now, instead of a student backpack, a worn laptop bag. And in his eyes, the fatigue of a man who writes important articles for publications nobody reads. We met in his office, or rather in the co-working space, his publication rented, a small desk by the window, 3 colleagues at neighboring desks. Not the most convenient place for a confidential conversation. But Joe Da had said, I have nothing to hide. I'm a journalist. Lin Xiaoyu, I said, when we sat down. His eyes narrowed quickly, professionally. I know that name, heard it in passing. A fraudster. Serial. 4 victims before me. 1 died. I'm the 5th. Do you have evidence? Bank statements, correspondence, 2 witnesses willing to talk, an open proceeding at the commission. I said. Everything verified by a lawyer. Zhou Da fidgeted in his chair. Pulled out a notepad. This is big. Why me? Because I need you, not your publication. I looked at him directly. I need someone who will publish when I say, will publish what I give and won't publish early, no matter what happens. That's called a press agent, not a journalist, he said. That's called mutual benefit. You'll get material no one else in Shanghai has. Names, dates, sums, evidence. Not one piece, a series, but only at the right moment. Before that, nothing. Zhou Da drummed his finger on the table. And what happens at the right moment? At the right moment, you'll print something that will be in every publication in the country by morning. I stood, handed him a flash drive. For now, just look it over. This is the first layer. When I say I'm ready, you get the rest. He took the flash drive, turned it in his fingers. You've changed, he said. In what sense? At university you were quiet. Now not. I put on my jacket. Alleys behind restaurants change people. I walked out without explaining. Zhou Da watched me go. I could feel it. Then, I was sure, he opened his laptop and plugged in the flash drive. Exactly, 19 hours after the forum. I was in the hotel room, working on documents, when the phone vibrated. Unknown number, I answered.
Mr. Chen.
A man's voice, polite, legally precise.
My name is Sun Wei, attorney for Ms. Lin Xiaoyu. My client wishes to settle the matter out of court. She is willing. No, I said. A pause. You haven't heard the terms. No need, no.
Mr. Chen, there are certain facts about the activities of your testator that might interest you. I disconnected. An hour later, Wei Mei sent a message. Lin has filed a counter-complaint with the commission. Accusation of illegal use of confidential data against us. I replied. Expected? The database? All clean. Every document obtained legally. Every source documented. Legally unassailable. Good system. Timer. 52 14 minutes and 9 probability. 63%, 61%. Note, opponent has strengthened position. Down 2%. Insignificant, but unpleasant. I put away the phone, stood at the window below. Shanghai glittered with a million lights, calm and indifferent to everything happening in one hotel room on the 20th floor. Thinking. Lin was smart. That had been obvious from the start. She would not sit and wait. She would attack. The question was from which side? The phone again. This time Li Boyan. We have a problem, he said without preamble. Mr. Liu, the 4th victim? He agreed to talk. He agreed, but this evening he withdrew his testimony. Through a lawyer, says he was mistaken. There was no fraud. I was quiet for a moment. Lin bought him, or frightened him, or both. A pause. Without his testimony, our evidentiary base against Lin is weaker. One source fewer. Understood. Give me until morning. System. Probability. 61%, 48%. Less than half. I sat back down at the desk. Opened Mr. Liu's folder, which I had already read 3 times, but apparently not carefully enough. I paged through, searched, found it. There was something interesting there. Not about the fraud with Lin, about something else. 3 years earlier, before he became a victim, Mr. Liu himself had participated in a questionable real estate scheme. Small, but documented, in Uncle Wei's archive. Lin didn't know about this, or hadn't gotten to it in time. I picked up my phone, found Mr. Liu's number. It was 10:30 in the evening, an inconvenient time to call. I didn't care. Hello, he answered, after the 4th ring. His voice was cautious. Mr. Liu, good evening, Chen Yu. Silence. I heard you changed your testimony, I said. I understand, it happens. A pause. But I wanted to ask about something else. The property on Changle Street, a transaction 3 years ago. There were some interesting details in the paperwork. Long silence. What do you want? He asked quietly. Nothing beyond what we had already agreed. Your testimony in the Lin case, and I never hear about Changle Street again. I gave him a second. Or you stay silent, and then I'll have to look into that story more carefully. Not because I want to harm you. Simply, curiosity. Another pause. Shorter. The press conference is canceled, he said. I'm unwell. Get well soon, I said. Disconnected. System. Probability, 48%, 67%. I exhaled. Long, slowly. The first real exhale in the last 2 hours. Below, Shanghai still glittered, indifferently and beautifully. On the 20th day, something happened that I hadn't expected. Mr. Liu called the same fourth victim who had withdrawn his testimony and then given it back. Mr. Chen, he said. His voice was different, not cautious as before, more like tired. I want to talk. I'm listening. Not over the phone. A meeting. Neutral ground. We met in Fuxing Park, the old French concession park with plane trees and benches. He had arrived first, sitting on a bench in a coat, with a walking stick. His leg hadn't been right since the hospital. I sat next to him. We were silent for a minute. Then he began, slowly, choosing his words. I know you found out about Changle Street. I know you know. And that you used it to get my testimony back. Yes. He was quiet. You could have used it differently, he said. Blackmail me properly, silence in exchange for testimony plus money, or simply as a weapon against me separate from everything else. I could have. Why didn't you? I thought for a second. Because I don't need your destruction, I said. I need the truth about Lin. Those are different things. Mr. Liu looked at the plane tree branches above. I am 62 years old, he said. I survived a heart attack. I lost the money I had saved for retirement. I sit on this bench now with a walking stick I didn't have 3 years ago. A pause. I want to give testimony, full testimony. Not because you cornered me, because I am tired of being silent. I looked at him. That changes the situation, I said, significantly. I know. He turned to me. She had 3 more before me. I am the only one who survived losing a large sum. If I stay quiet, she'll find the next one, and the next. A pause. That's enough for me. We stood, shook hands. Wei Mei will be in touch, I said. She's a professional. You're in good hands. He nodded. Walked away along the avenue slowly, with his stick among the plane trees. The system blinked before my eyes. New data received. Campaign probability, plus 8%, 8%. For one conversation on a park bench. Sometimes victories come not from fighting, but from a person simply deciding to be honest. The money Lin had taken from me passed through 3 layers. Wei Mei reconstructed this in a week. Bank statements, corporate registries, notarized documents. First layer, the account of my former company. Second, Wang's shell company. Third, the Huajin Investment Fund, registered in the Cayman Islands. Huajin was traded on the Shanghai exchange. A small fund, low liquidity shares not in the top 100, which was exactly why perfect for gray operations. Small and inconspicuous. If we buy enough of a stake, I said to Li Boyan, we become minority shareholders, and at the next board meeting, we can demand an audit of all transactions. Li Boyan studied the calculations. For a blocking stake, you need 8%, he said. At current prices, about 12 million. I have that from the inheritance. It's a risk, he said. If they smell a buyout, they'll start a counter-purchase. The price will spike. You won't have enough. Then we move quietly. Small lots, through different accounts. I have 3 nominee accounts through partners. We can split it up. We split it up, started buying. The first 3 days, smoothly. Price held steady, small volumes, no reaction. On the 4th day, something went wrong. I saw it in the morning. The price started rising. Someone else was buying the same shares. Aggressively, in large lots. System, bet under threat. Probability, 44%. I called Li Boyan. He didn't answer. I called again. Silence. Wei Mei was watching the exchange terminal. We're short 1%, she said. At current prices, we need another 8 million. If someone is forcing us out, they may push the price higher still. I stared at the numbers. In the estate, there was one asset I hadn't planned to touch. A plot of land in Qingpu that Uncle had held for 20 years. Not for sale. For what purpose? Unclear. Maybe he simply liked it. Worth about 10 million at current prices. If we sell Qingpu, I said, we'll have enough. Wei Mei looked at me. I couldn't read her expression. Something between "are you sure" and "it's not my decision." Uncle kept this plot for 20 years, I said aloud. More for myself. Yes. He could have kept it. or used it for something important. I looked at the screen. I think this is the important thing. I called a real estate agent, found a buyer in 40 minutes at a slightly reduced price, but quickly. 3 hours later, the money was in the account. We closed the stake. Exactly 1 hour later, Lee Boyan called back. Sorry, he said. His voice was neutral, but there was something deliberate in the neutrality. I wasn't picking up. I noticed. I wanted to see what you'd do. I was quiet. And what did you see? You sold an asset from the estate, said Lee Boyan. A plot that Wei Gochan had held longer than you've been alive. A pause. I was the one buying those shares. It was a test. An expensive test. Yes. Sorry. He was quiet again. But now I truly trust you. Not because you're smart, because you're willing to risk what's yours, not someone else's. System probability, 44%, 73%, 29% upward in a single call. Lee Boyan, I said, next time just tell me you want to run a test. I don't like surprises. Noted, he said. And in his voice I wasn't sure, but it seemed there was a small smile. A week later, at the Huijin board meeting, I demanded an audit. The majority supported it. Lee Boyan had worked the 3 independent shareholders beforehand. Wang Jiangguo, who still sat on the board while the case wound its way toward court, turned white. I didn't look at him. There was no point. He was already a settled question. The 30 days against Fan were not simply waiting. It was a war of attrition, quiet on paper. Not a single blow thrown, but no less exhausting for that. Every morning began with notifications. Every evening ended with reviewing what had come in that day. On the 14th day, Fan struck his most sophisticated blow. Not through the courts, through partners. Uncle's estate had stakes in 7 companies. I'd known this from day one. 3 were active, 4 dormant, small. Fan, through intermediaries, reached out to 2 partners in the active companies and offered to buy out the stakes. At a good price, 20% above market. One refused immediately. Wei Mei knew him, a long-term partner of Uncle's, reliable. The second agreed. This meant we suddenly had a new co-owner in the company generating our main cash flow. A new co-owner with obvious sympathies toward Fan. This isn't a catastrophe, Wei Mei said when I came to her with the news. He's a minority shareholder. He can't block decisions. He can obstruct.
Yes,
She thought. We need to call an extraordinary general meeting and lock in the current operating policy before he has a chance to dig in. Is that legal?
absolutely. We're the majority.
We held the meeting in 3 days. The new co-owner, a young man in an expensive suit with the manner of someone accustomed to having people defer to him, arrived with a lawyer and tried to slow the proceedings through technical objections. I sat at that meeting and listened. The new co-owner's lawyer spoke at length and professionally. He peppered the room with terminology, cited regulations, demanded a postponement of the vote. When he finished, I took the floor. Respected board, I said. All the technical objections presented by our colleagues are legally valid. I wish to draw attention to one fact. Our charter provides for an extraordinary general meeting convened at the initiative of the majority shareholder, without prior coordination with minority shareholders. Article 17, paragraph 3. I turned to the lawyer. If you wish to contest this, that is your right, but the contest is filed after the meeting, not instead of it. Silence. The chairman looked at the lawyer. The lawyer looked at his papers. The new co-owner turned red. The vote passed. Our position was locked in. System opponent tactic neutralized. Probability plus 3%. After the meeting in the corridor, the new co-owner stopped beside me. You think you've won? He said quietly. His tone was unpleasant. Not angry, exactly unpleasant, the tone of someone accustomed to the last word. I looked at him. I think I applied the company charter correctly, I said. That's not a victory, that's just work. And walked to the elevator. Behind me he was saying something. I didn't turn back or listen, no need. 14 of the 30 days behind me. Half. The 18th day brought a different problem. Zhou Da called, unsettled. He almost never sounded unsettled. Listen, something's up, he said. A piece appeared online. Small site, but it's spreading. What piece? About Uncle, about his gray schemes. detailed with documents someone leaked. I felt something contract inside me, not fear, more like anger, cold, working anger. Where did the documents come from? Don't know. Some look like they came from business registries public. Some are clearly inside. Someone gave them. I thought for a second. Fan? Either him or Lin. More likely him. She doesn't have the resources for that kind of operation right now. How much time before major outlets pick it up? 3 hours, maybe 4 if you're lucky. 4 hours, I called Wei Mei. She already knew, had been monitoring. How bad is it? Depends on what we do in the next 3 hours, she said. You were preparing talking points about Uncle in case Lin revealed it? Are they ready? Ready, waiting for the moment. The moment came earlier than I wanted, I said. But no matter. Zhou Da, are you ready for emergency publication? Always ready, he answered immediately. Then here's the plan. We go first with our version, not a defense, an analysis, honest, complete, acknowledging what was gray and explaining the context. You have 3 hours. 2 hours is enough for me. I worked for 2 hours and 17 minutes. Wei Mei checked facts. I wrote the text. Zhou Da edited on the fly. The piece went up 40 minutes before the first major outlet picked up the leaked version. By the time the mass audience saw the expose, our honest version was already the top search result. We weren't defending ourselves. We were explaining the context of the 90s, when the gray zone was the norm for survival. Documentary confirmation that no one had been personally robbed. And most importantly, that Uncle himself had recognized this, and for 30 years had donated a portion of income to a charitable fund for Suzhou workers. Wei Mei had found this at the last moment, a small fund, regular transfers, no publicity. Fan leaked the compromising material, but we had gotten there first. System, probability 51%, 59%, 8% upward. Zhou Da wrote at midnight, reaction positive. You know how to manage a narrative. Then, how did you know to prepare in advance? I replied, Uncle's lesson, information you hold, grows in value until the right moment comes. He wrote simply, smart old man, yes, smart days past. It is a strange thing waiting. I thought I knew how to wait, but it turned out that waiting while doing nothing is one thing, and waiting while simultaneously 3 legal proceedings, 1 corporate audit, 2 countersuits, and an unknown share buyer on the exchange are running in parallel. That is something else entirely. Wei Mei held everything together. I had never met anyone who could manage 5 parallel processes and still find time at night to read materials for the next step. But she did. She arrived at the office before everyone, left after everyone, sent reports at 11 in the evening marked for tomorrow, as if tomorrow wasn't morning but simply a continuation of today. Once, already in the 2nd week after the forum, I asked her directly, Wei Mei, do you sleep? She looked up, a slight surprise at the question. Sleep? I repeated. Properly. Enough. You look like a person who works, like a person who doesn't sleep. She looked at me for a second. I sleep 6 hours, she said. That's enough for me. 6 is too little. It's enough for me. I was about to continue, but realized it was her decision, her body, her standards. I was not her employer in the sense of giving orders. All right, I said, but if you need me, call. Anytime. She was slightly surprised again, then nodded. Without extra words, we kept working. There were good days and bad days. Good, when a notification arrived that another document had been accepted, that the court had dismissed a countersuit, that another witness had confirmed their testimony. Bad when Fan froze another account, when it turned out unexpectedly that a partner we had considered neutral was on his side. The system reflected all of it in numbers. Good days, the percentage rose. Bad ones, it fell. I learned not to check it too often. It was like standing on the scales every hour when you're trying to lose weight. Nothing useful, just nerves. Once a day, in the morning. I looked at the probability, noted it, and put it away. Lived. I returned to 3 beans not because I had planned to. I was simply walking past, my head occupied, and my feet turned on their own. She was behind the counter. She saw me, nodded, recognized me. Showed no surprise. I took the window table. She brought coffee without asking. She had remembered the order. Double Americano. Thank you, I said. She stayed, didn't leave. You're her victim? She asked quietly. Her. I looked at her. How do you know? She called this morning. Lin Jiaohui spoke evenly, without excessive emotion. She was controlling herself. You could see that. She said not to open the door if you came. Not to talk to you. She said you were a dangerous man. And what do you think? She looked at my hands, then at my face. The bruise under my eye had nearly faded, but the mark remained. I think a dangerous man usually looks different, she said. I was slightly surprised. She was quiet again, choosing her words. I don't know what she does, said Lin Jiaohui at last. I never knew. She never told me. But I know it's not what she says it is. A pause. She never says what's real. I looked at her.
You love her, I said. Not a question. She's my sister.
That's not the same thing. Something in her face flickered quickly. She caught herself. I can help, she said. If something is needed, I saw documents once. By accident, I didn't want to, but no, I said. She was surprised. No. Your help is not needed. I looked at her directly. This is not your story. Get out of it while you can. But I could. Xiaohui. The first time I had used her given name, and she stopped. You are an honest person in a dishonest situation. The best thing you can do is remain honest. Don't help me, don't help her. Simply live your own life. She stood there. And her? I didn't answer immediately. That question isn't for me, I said at last. She nodded, slowly, as if agreeing with something inside herself, then went back to the other tables. I drank coffee and thought about what she had said. She never says what's real, and thought that this was not just about Lin Xiaoyu. It was about people in general who had learned to hide. Behind masks, behind roles, behind words. Uncle Wei had hidden behind fish from Fujian. Li Boyan hid behind a neutral face. I myself hid behind a calm that was not calm, but simply deliberate silence. The difference between Lin Xiaoyu and me, and I only understood this now, was not that she was a fraudster and I was an honest man. The difference was in who was being harmed. A simple thought. But sometimes simple thoughts take time to arrive. I made a mistake on the 22nd day. I was tired. A week without proper sleep. 3 parallel cases. Wei Mei every evening with new materials. And I opened Fan's folder, again, for who knows which time, and felt I already knew enough that I could act. I opened the system. Opponent. Fan Jianming. Available data. 67% complete probability of win. 12%. Hua Noning. Insufficient data for reliable bet. Activate? Yes. No. 12%. My hand hovered. I stared at the screen. Thought about Lin. About how she was already losing. Thought about how Fan was next. Thought that 12% was low, but data could be gathered. And with the bet active, a 30-day timer was time to gather more. Then I remembered the postcard. A fish does not swim against the current for no reason. Wait for yours. I pulled my hand back. Activation. Cancelled. Penalty for attempt without sufficient data. Next activation against this opponent. No sooner than 30 days. I stared at that line for a long time. 30 days. 30 days penalty for an error I had almost made. The system didn't punish for defeat. It punished for impatience. Uncle Wei. Logical. That's exactly how you would have programmed it. The next morning, Fan began to move. I understood this when a letter arrived from corporate counsel, a notice of preliminary litigation. Fan was attacking through Huajin, abuse of minority shareholder rights, share price manipulation, and 3 other points dubious enough but serious enough to freeze corporate actions during proceedings. A day later, a second suit. 3 days later, asset preservation orders on 2 of the estate's accounts. Wei Mei came every evening with new papers. He's not rushing, she said. Systematic. How much is at risk? Of the estate's assets, about 30% frozen, or at risk. Does he know we can't strike back at him for 30 days? He doesn't know about the system, said Wei Mei. But he intuitively senses that we need time. People like him always sense it. I stood up, walked around the room. 30 days is a lot, I said. Yes, if he continues at this pace, in 30 days there will be nothing left to activate. Yes. I stopped. So I have to make him slow down himself. Or stop. How? I don't know yet. I looked at the window. Give me the night. The system was silent. No hints. Only the dark background and one line at the bottom. Timer U until activation against fan. 29 days. 29 days. All right. I sat at the desk, opened fan's folder. Again. Read until 4 in the morning, and found something I had missed before. A small detail, almost trivial. Fan's personal contract with one of his key partners contained a conflict of interest clause. If Fan or his company came under official investigation, the partner could exit the deal without penalty. Fan was not under investigation yet, but he could come under investigation for the very story with the pension fund 15 years back if someone filed a complaint. An investigation in itself did not mean an indictment, but it meant a review, which meant the partner could leave, and that partner was critical to Fan right now. His signature stood under half of the current operations. I called Lee Boyan. It was 5 in the morning. He answered after the second ring. Apparently he wasn't sleeping either. The pension fund in Suzhou 15 years ago. If I file a complaint tomorrow requesting an investigation, not an indictment, just an investigation, will Fan stop? Silence. He'll stop, said Lee Boyan, because the investigation will trigger the contractual clause with Dincheng Invest. Fan will lose a partner at a moment when he can't afford to. The complaint must be from an actual victim. I am a victim, said Lee Boyan. His voice was level. I was a fund depositor. I have documents. You never did this in 15 years. I was waiting until there was a reason. A pause. Now there is one. This changes your position. You'll become public.
I know, Lee Boyan.
Chen Yu, he said. I spent 25 years building something from nothing because one man in a suit decided my money was more useful to him. I waited for the moment when I could fix this not just for myself, but properly. A pause. This is it. The complaint was filed in the morning. By evening, a call came from Fan's lawyer. Calm, polite. A proposal to suspend corporate actions to discuss a constructive dialogue. System. Timer until activation. 22 days. Assets currently at risk. 14% was 30%. I exhaled. 22 days. Fan had slowed, not stopped, slowed. That should be enough. Should be. Lin held her press conference on the 25th day. Conference room at the Sheraton, 30 journalists, cameras. She came out in a light gray suit, the color of a victim, not an aggressor. Smart. I watched the live stream on my laptop. Wei Mei sat beside me. Lin spoke well. Very well. The story of how a former partner, she called me Mr. C, but everyone understood who was persecuting her with fabricated documents for the money. The story of how she herself was a victim, of how they were trying to destroy her, of how all her work for the benefit of investors was being put at risk by one man's personal vendetta. She cried. Once briefly wiped away a tear, and it was perfect. Not hysterics, not theater. One tear at the right moment. Then journalists asked questions. She answered confidently. At the end, a statement of intent to file a defamation suit against an unnamed individual. When the stream ended, Wei Mei looked at me. Is this a problem? Yes, I said honestly. That was well done, system. Timer until. Fan activation. 5 days. Overall campaign probability. 51%. Heads or tails. I stood. Paced the room. Wei Mei, in Uncle's archive, is there material about himself? She looked at me in surprise. He compiled a dossier on himself. No. But the gray schemes through which he worked, are they documented? A long pause. Yes, she said carefully. Some of his operations were in a gray zone, not criminal, but Lin will expose this soon, I said. If she has even one decent analyst, she'll find it and use it. Better if we say it ourselves. You want to publicly admit that your testator operated in gray schemes? I want to tell the truth first. I looked at her. Lin will strike with this from the angle of accusation, and then it will be a revelation. If I say it myself, it will be honesty. The difference is significant. Wei Mei was silent for a long time. He wouldn't have wanted this, she said at last. Uncle. He guarded his reputation carefully. He's dead, I said quietly. The reputations of the dead belong to the living. I'll manage it as I see fit. A pause. He left me a tool, not an instruction for how to use it. Long silence. All right, said Wei Mei. I'll prepare the talking points. Tonight, tomorrow morning, Zhou Da publishes. She nodded. System, timer until fan activation, 5 days. Probability, 51%, 56%. 5% up for one decision. Not much, but in the right direction. On the 28th day, she came herself. 8 in the evening, I was in Wei Mei's office. Tomorrow was the activation. We were preparing. A call came from reception. A young woman here for you. She says you know her. I went down. Lin Xiaohui stood at the entrance in a coat, slightly damp from rain. It had been raining, and she had apparently walked. Her gaze had the look that comes when a person has made a decision and is afraid they'll change their mind if they stop. I found something, she said. I told you to stay out of this story. I know. She didn't lower her gaze, but she brought me back into it. My sister. I said nothing. A month ago, she asked me to help with document processing. She said, small work, just signatures on papers, nothing serious. I did it. I didn't know for whom. She pulled an envelope from her bag. This morning, I accidentally saw the recipient's name on one document. She handed me the envelope. These are documents for the Dincheng Invest Company. I was signing as a courier. I was inside his network without knowing it. I took the envelope, opened it, looked at the documents, then looked up at her. Do you understand what this means? I understand, she said quietly. I was working for fans people unwittingly, but I was. This could compromise you in the case. I know. She didn't look away. But it's better this way than what? Than being part of this any longer and not knowing. I looked at her. Wei Mei had followed me out. She stood behind my shoulder, watching. Do you trust her? She asked me quietly. First time using the familiar form, she hadn't noticed or didn't care. I looked at Lin Xiaohui, a person who had come through the rain with documents that could harm her because she had decided it was the right thing to do. Yes, I said, and let her in. The documents proved important. Not revolutionary, but they closed one gap in Fan's scheme that we couldn't close through Uncle's archive. A direct link between Lin's operations and Dincheng accounts. Live documentary with dates. We worked until 2 in the morning. On the 3rd day of the buyout, I had barely slept. Wei Mei had sent me a terminal with access to a brokerage account, one of the nominees, through a partner of Li Boyan's in Hong Kong. I watched the screen like a doctor watching a cardiac monitor. Every price movement mattered. The first day went smoothly. 70,000 shares at minimum price, unnoticed, spread across 3 different brokerage accounts. No market reaction. The second day, also calm, another 60,000. We were at 4% of the needed volume. On the morning of the 3rd day, I was looking at the terminal and felt something before I saw it. A small volume at the open, then another, then a third, already noticeable. Someone else was in the same instrument. I called Wei Mei. Watching Huajin? Watching, she replied. Unknown buyer. Large lots, no concealment. No concealment, either inexperienced or someone deliberately driving the price up and not hiding it. The price began to rise. System. Bet under 3. Probability. 44%. Recommendation. Increase capital or exit. Exit. Lose everything invested and gain nothing. Increase capital. Where to get it. I stared at the numbers, thinking fast. Untouched estate assets. An apartment being rented out. A retail pavilion in Qingpu. A plot of land in the suburbs. Everything together, about 25 million. Not all needed, but some. The Qingpu plot, that one. 20 years Uncle had held it. Not for income, he just held it. Maybe as insurance. Maybe he simply liked owning land. Worth 10 million. I looked at the file with the plot's description. Riverbank, good land, no encumbrances. A beautiful spot in the description photos. Old willows, quiet water. Uncle had never visited in the last 12 years, as far as I could tell from the documents. Just held it, paid taxes, held it. Wei Mei, I said. Can the Qingpu plot be sold today? A long pause. Technically yes, she said. If we drop the price 15%, we'll find a buyer within hours. The land is good. Another pause, more significant. Chen Yu, he held that plot for 20 years. I know. Are you sure? I watched the terminal. The price was rising, slowly but steadily. No, I said honestly, but I have no better option. This asset is needed here. A pause. Sell it. She sold it in 4 hours. The buyer was found through contacts, a small land fund assembling plots on that side of the river. The price was below market, but acceptable. The money came in. We closed the share package right at the end of the trading session, literally in the last 20 minutes, when the large buyer apparently thought they had pushed us out. I leaned back in my chair, closed the terminal system. Probability: 44% bet is 73% bet stabilized, 29% upward. The phone was silent. Li Boyan wasn't calling back. Wei Mei sent a message. The plot is gone. Everything closed. And a minute later, he would have known what you did. And he would have approved. I read it. Put down the phone. You would have known, uncle, because otherwise you wouldn't have left an instrument without instructions. At 2 a.m, Lin Xiaohui fell asleep at the desk, right in the office, without moving. Wei Mei brought a blanket, covered her. I looked at her, asleep, without the mask of the older sister, without fear, just a person who was tired. I thought sometimes the right people are born into the wrong families. Not because the family is wrong, simply different people, different compasses. The system was silent. Dark background. No text. Tomorrow, day 30. On the 26th day, something unexpected happened. Mr. Fan called himself. Not through lawyers. Personally, an unknown number. But the system immediately showed. Incoming call. Fan Jianming. I stared at the screen for 3 seconds, then answered. Mr. Chen, said the voice. A pleasant voice. Low, unhurried. The voice of someone accustomed to being listened to. Glad to finally speak directly? Likewise, I said evenly. You are an intelligent young man, he said. I've been studying you these past weeks. Intelligent, patient, well-organized. A pause. It's a pity we've met under such circumstances. What circumstances exactly? Circumstances in which our interests diverge? The voice was friendly, professionally friendly. Mr. Chen, I'd like to propose a meeting, informal, without lawyers, simply a conversation between two business people. Why? Because I believe we have things to talk about. You lost money, whether lawfully or not, that's a separate question, but you lost it. I could help compensate, without courts, without investigations, quickly and cleanly. Something inside me noted unpleasantly. He is offering a buyout, meaning he is nervous. System. Opponent tactic. Negotiation as distraction. Probability of sincerity. 4%. Mr. Fan, I said. I appreciate the call, but compensation doesn't interest me. A small pause. What does interest you? The truth, I said simply, in public form. A long pause, longer than people usually allow for effect. A real one, a thinking one. That is a destructive position, he said at last. For both sides. For one. Are you certain it's not for both? Certain. Another pause. Young man, he said. And for the first time, something different appeared in his voice. Not warm, not friendly. Cold. You don't understand who you're speaking with. I do, I said. Exactly why I'm not accepting the meeting. I disconnected. My hands weren't shaking. This surprised me a little. I had expected they would be. But no, just quiet. I called Li Boyan. Fan called himself. Offered a meeting and compensation. The reply came a minute later. Means he's afraid. Good sign. Good sign. 4 days until activation. On the 24th day, something unexpected arrived. A letter. Paper, not electronic, in an envelope with no return address, delivered to Wei Mei's office by courier. Inside, 1 page, unsigned. A short text. You think you know the full picture? You do not know. There is something Wei Gochan deliberately did not include in the archive. Not because he didn't know, because he couldn't bring himself to. If you want to know, come alone. Coffee House Moonbridge, Suhui, at 1900 any evening this week. I will be waiting. I showed the letter to Wei Mei. She read it. Her face showed nothing. A trap, she said. Possibly. Classic scheme. Lure in, isolate, apply pressure. Also possible, will you go? I thought. Yes, I said. But not alone. Li Boyan agreed without questions, only asked for the address. We came as 3. Me, him, and one of his people who sat at the neighboring table ahead of us. In the Moonbridge coffee shop at 7 in the evening, among ordinary patrons, young couples, students with laptops, an elderly man with a newspaper, I looked for whoever had written the letter. Found them on the 3rd minute, a woman of about 50, short hair, glasses, with a cup of tea. She was watching me when I came in, meaning she knew my face. I sat across from her. Lee Boyan took a spot by the window within sight. "Who are you?" I asked directly. "Who I am doesn't matter." She had a calm voice, tired, but not frightened. "What matters is what I know." A pause. "I worked for Fan. 7 years. Financial control inside Golden Dragon. 3 years ago, I understood the scale of the pension fund scheme. I wanted to leave. He wouldn't let me go. He had compromising material on me, small but sufficient. And now? Now I see that you've cornered him, that regulators are already involved." She looked at me steadily. "If he falls, the compromising material no longer matters. And if I help him fall faster, perhaps I get better terms from the investigation." "What do you have?" "Internal transaction logs for the last 5 years." She placed a flash drive on the table, unfiltered. Everything that passed through the system, including what Fan masked from outside auditors. I looked at the flash drive, at her. Back at the flash drive. System. New data source. Probability of authenticity, 71%. Probability of trap, 29%. 71 to 29. Familiar numbers, exactly those odds I had started with against Wang. "Why now?" I asked. 6 days left until the final. "Because 6 days ago, I still thought Fan might get out of it," she said. "Now, I don't." I took the flash drive. "Wei Mei will verify," I said. "If everything is as you say, your testimony enters the case materials. That's the best I can offer." "That's sufficient," she said. I stood. "One thing." She stopped me quietly. "In Wei Gochan's archive, what I said about what's missing, there genuinely is a missing piece about a person, not Fan, higher up. Who? You'll find out yourself," she said, "when you open the last page." I looked at her for a second. "You know the name."
I know.
"And you won't say."
Not today, she corrected.
"When everything with Fan is finished, come. I'll tell you." She picked up her tea, turned to the window. The conversation was over. I went out. On the street, Lee Boyan caught up with me. "What's there?" I showed him the flash drive, Insider, from Golden Dragon. Internal logs. I put the flash drive in my pocket. And a hint that the last page of the book isn't empty. "Do you believe her?" I thought for a second. "Enough to check," I said. Wei Mei checked the flash drive all night. In the morning, she reported, genuine. The data matched external documents where it could be verified and showed what the external documents concealed. System. Probability of final bet, 69%. Not 90, not 100. 69. But sufficient. On the last night before the meeting, I thought about numbers. Not about money, about what they mean. 847 yen at the start. 431 million at the end. That number in itself meant nothing special, just a number. A large number in an account. Good that it's there. But it's not the result. The result is Wei Mei, who will go to Guilin in 2 weeks. The result is Mr. Liu with his walking stick, who found the strength to speak. The result is 3,000 workers in Suzhou, who will learn that they were not robbed by a faceless system. They were robbed by a specific person, and that person is answering for it. The result is Lee Boyan, who carried this inside himself for 25 years, and was finally able to set it down. And perhaps Lin Xiaohui in Three Beans coffee shop, who laughs a genuine laugh and doesn't pretend to be someone she is not. Money is a tool. Uncle wrote that in the first postcard when I was 16. I had thought then standard adult wisdom, like health is more important than money. Heard it 1,000 times. Now I understood what he had meant. A tool, literally. A hammer isn't valuable in itself. What's valuable is what you build. Money isn't valuable in itself. What's valuable is what you do with them. You can't build anything with 847 yen. With 430 million, you can start. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow, the meeting. The day after, a new morning. The evening before day 30, I spent alone. Wei Mei offered to stay, in case I'm needed. I declined. Lee Boyan asked if any help was needed with the final preparations. I said everything is ready, closed the hotel room door, sat by the window. Shanghai was living its own life, bright, loud, indifferent to everything but itself. I liked that about the city. This indifference was honest. The city didn't pretend to care about you. It simply was itself and allowed you to be yourself. I thought about what these 30 days meant, from 847 and 3 broken ribs to tomorrow morning. 30 days, Wei Mei, Li Boyan, Zhou Da, Lin Xiaohui, who came herself in the rain. Mr. Liu on the bench with his stick. The Qingpu plot that sold in a few hours. Uncle's postcard about the fish that doesn't swim against the current. 30 days. That is not a little. But the most important thing I had learned in these 30 days was not about money, not about schemes and strategies, about people. Wei Mei, who worked for someone she trusted, not for whoever paid more. Li Boyan, who waited 25 years for a moment and didn't grow bitter while he waited. Mr. Liu, who at 62 after a heart attack and a walking stick, found the strength to do the right thing. And Lin Xiaohui, who worked for people without knowing who she was working for, and when she found out, came in the rain. Uncle Wei said I knew how to read people but didn't know I knew. Now I know. People are not divided into good and bad. They are divided into those who choose honesty when it costs them, and those who choose convenience when honesty demands a price. Lin Xiaoyu paid a different price. Her price was never being genuine, always a role, always a mask. I don't know which is worse. I opened my phone, looked at the balance, taking into account the frozen accounts and everything Fan had done in these 30 days. Available assets remaining were about 150 million. The rest under liens or in proceedings. 150. That's a lot for most people, that is very much, but it's not what it should be. And tomorrow, I will fix that, or lose everything. 31%. I went to bed at 10:30, set the alarm for 4, closed my eyes. Uncle Wei. I'll try. The morning of day 30, I began at 4 in the morning, not because I couldn't sleep. I had made myself go to bed at midnight and get up at 4. I gave myself 4 hours. That's enough. I sat by the window, drank tea, watched Shanghai gradually lighten. First dark blue sky over Pudong, then gray, then the first pink strip over the horizon. The city wakes slowly, like someone who hasn't slept enough but has to go to work. The system was waiting. I didn't open it right away. I needed 1 more minute, just to sit, just tea, just the dawn. Without numbers, without percentages, without timers. Just me in the morning. Then I opened it. Timer until activation. 000 restriction lifted. Ready? I looked at my cup, finished the tea, set it down. Opponent. Fan Jianming available data, 94% complete. Bet. All remaining assets, plus reputation freedom. Return on win. X2. Probability of win, 69%. 31% chance I lose everything. I stared at that number. 31%. That's more than 1 chance in 3. That's not a little. If someone had told me a month ago that I'd have 70% odds against Fan, I would have considered those good odds. Now, when I have to press the button, 31 felt enormous. Uncle Wei, you created a system that gives no 100% certainty. Deliberately, I think. Because 100% certainty is not a victory, it's a guarantee. And you didn't believe in guarantees. You believed in preparation, in patience, and in the willingness to take a step when the probability is high enough, not when risk disappears. I entered the confirmation. Bet accepted. Opponent. Fan Jianming. Timer. 2400 probability 69%. Good luck. Chen Yu. The system had never wished luck before. Not once. Not with Wang. Not with Lin. Only now. I didn't know what to do with this, said aloud, to the empty room. And to you, uncle. I called Wei Mei. We're starting. Then Li Boyan today. Then Zhou Da. Get the final piece ready. I'll give the go-ahead this evening. The day began. The Golden Dragon annual shareholders meeting was held at the Shanghai Expo Convention Center, a large hall, 400 seats, streaming for shareholders who couldn't attend in person. Zhou Da organized a live broadcast through 3 colleagues from different publications, each with their own camera, each with different broadcast rights. Technically, this was legal. A shareholders meeting is a public event for shareholders. Li Boyan was a shareholder. I was a shareholder through the estate. It turned out Wei Gochan had held a small golden dragon stake for 8 years already. Insignificant, but sufficient. We arrived 40 minutes early, took seats in the middle of the hall, not the first row, not the last. Fan appeared on stage at 9:30, in a dark blue suit with graying temples, with the confident bearing of a man who had conducted hundreds of such meetings. Intelligent eyes, no excess self-satisfaction. He was not a caricature villain. He was a dangerous man. Those are different things. He began his presentation. Structure, numbers, plans, everything professional, everything proper. At the 20-minute mark, the door to the hall opened, 2 of them, a man and a woman, business attire, lanyards. I recognized the lanyards, the Financial Regulatory Commission, not the Securities Commission, Heir. Wei Mei had passed the materials 3 days ago, and apparently they had studied them faster than we expected. They didn't hurry, stood at the wall, observed. Fan noticed them on the 32nd second. I timed it. Continued speaking, a professional, but the tempo of his speech changed. By the slightest margin, imperceptible to most, I noticed. Another 5 minutes passed. Then the regulators began moving toward the stage. The hall sensed it. This is something that happens when something changes in a room, but no one yet understands what. People began to look around, to murmur. Fan stopped mid-sentence, looked at the regulators, looked at the hall, and at that moment I stood up. Not dramatically. I simply stood, picked up a folder of documents from the table, and walked toward the exit. Slowly, through the center aisle, past the rows. Fan looked at me. For the first time in all this story, we were in the same room, looking at each other. I saw his eyes. He recognized me, hadn't known my face before, but understood who I was. By the way I walked, by the fact that I was walking toward the exit while the regulators were walking toward him. We passed each other, literally, in the center aisle, 2 meters apart as I moved toward the exit, and they toward the stage. He didn't stop me. He couldn't. "Mr. Fan," said one of the regulators, stepping up to the stage, "we have several questions within the framework of an open proceeding. Please come with us." The hall buzzed. Behind me, it was beginning. I didn't turn back. System, timer, 01:1744. Status, bet complete. Resultat, win. Return, X2. New balance, 412 million. 412 million. I stopped at the exit. 1 moment, 1 breath. 4 million lost, plus what had been spent over these months, minus the Qingpu plot, plus the inheritance, multiplied by 2. Net result, 412 million yuan and 3 broken ribs that barely hurt anymore. Uncle Wei, you could have just left money, but then I wouldn't have known what I am capable of. Zhou Da called 10 minutes later. Do I release it? Release it. The piece ran at 11:23 in the morning. By noon, 6 publications had reprinted it. By 3 in the afternoon, 22 by evening, national channels. There was one moment I hadn't told anyone about. 2 days before the meeting, I drove to Qingpu. Not because I had to. I simply wanted to. The plot had been sold. The new owner was processing documents. But while it still formally sat in a transition period, I had the right to visit. I rented a car, drove an hour and a half through city traffic on the way out, then on a country highway, then on a road that barely existed, a dirt track through a field. I found the plot by the coordinates in the document, got out, stood and looked. Riverbank. Old willows, the same ones I had seen in the description photos. The water quiet, silvery in the overcast October light. Small wooden pier, long unused, the planks darkened. Silence, genuine country silence, not the empty silence of a closed room. I stood there for perhaps half an hour. Simply stood. Thought about how Uncle Wei had bought this plot 30 years ago and never once visited. Or he had visited but it wasn't reflected in the documents. Just held it. Paid taxes. Held it. Perhaps this was his personal thing. The one thing that was only his. Not schemes, not archives, not a network of contacts. Just willows by the river. Perhaps he looked at the photographs sometimes and thought, this is where I'll go when everything is over. And everything never ended because in the black book there was always one more name, one more injustice that needed documenting. He never went. I went for him. Uncle Wei, I said aloud. It's beautiful. A willow above the water swayed wind. Ordinary wind, no mysticism, but I took it as an answer. Drove back to the city. Tomorrow, the meeting. After everything was over, Joe Da wrote a long piece. Not about schemes and not about money, about the whole story. He interviewed me 3 times, long, detailed sessions. He asked me to talk not about facts, but about feelings, about moments. I talked. He asked one question at the end of the last interview. If you could go back to that alley, knowing everything you know now, would you change anything? I thought. No. I said nothing.
Nothing. I looked at him, not because everything was right. Much was wrong. I made mistakes. I rushed. I nearly broke the system with impatience. A pause.
But if you change one thing, everything changes. There would be no black book, no Wei Mei, no Li Boyan, no moment in the hall when Fan looked at me and understood. So the pain was necessary? The pain simply was, I said. That doesn't mean it was necessary. It means it happened and that I did with it what I could. Joe Da was typing, then looked up. Last question. 3%. Will you do it? I looked at him. Read my materials, I said. When the time comes, you'll be first. He smiled, closed his laptop. Deal. Day 31, already after everything, was the quietest in 2 months. I woke without an alarm. Lay and listened to the city outside the window. Shanghai was waking, as always, without extra noise. Simply beginning, checked my phone. There were many messages, journalists, Zhou Da with questions for the second piece, Wei Mei with the first report on accounts starting to unfreeze. Li Boyan wrote briefly, well done. When shall we meet? I put away the phone. Lay for another 20 minutes. Thought about nothing in particular. Just let thoughts go where they wanted. Uncle Wei. Postcards. Willows at the Qingpu plot I had never seen in person. Coffee at 3 Beans. 3% on the last page. Got up, showered, got dressed, went to Wei Mei. The office met me with quiet. She sat at her desk, as always, with coffee. Looked up when I entered. Said nothing, just looked for a moment. Did you sleep? I asked. 7 hours, she said. That's more than usual. Yes. A slight pause. I allowed myself. We sat. I picked up coffee. It was hot. She had apparently made it not long before I arrived. She knew when I'd come. How are the accounts? I asked. Unfreezing has begun. 3 days for the first tranche, up to 2 weeks for the rest. She opened her laptop. Fan is not challenging the regulator's decision. His lawyers are silent, meaning he's accepted. Accepted the result. That doesn't mean he'll accept the consequences quietly. She looked at me. He'll try to minimize through connections. He has many. Li Boyan knows. Li Boyan has been working on that since yesterday evening, she confirmed. He also has connections. Good. We were in the right hands, each of us and all together. I looked out the window at the river. Wei Mei. May I ask a personal question? You may. Did you want anything for yourself in these 2 months? I turned to her. Not for the work, for yourself personally. She looked at me in surprise. What do you mean? A hobby, a place you wanted to visit, something put off because there was no time. Long silence. I wanted to see Guilin, she said at last. There are mountains over the river there. I've seen it in photographs. I wanted to see it in person. A small pause. 3 years I've been wanting to. Always no time. Take a week, I said. There are too many things. I'm not asking. Take a week, the nearest one, or when the accounts unfreeze, whichever is convenient. But take it. She looked at me. Wei Mei, I said. Uncle Wei said you work because you trust, not because there's nowhere to go and nothing to do. Trust is not compulsion. A pause. Go to Guilin. A very long silence. In 2 weeks, she said at last, when the accounts are fully unfrozen. Deal. We went back to work. But something in the room had become a little different, lighter somehow, as if a window had been opened. 3 weeks later, Wang Jianguo was in custody. He had been arrested in the 2nd week after the Huajin audit concluded, and the investigative committee received the materials. Lawyers were bargaining over a deal. Fan Jianming was under investigation. No arrest yet, but assets frozen. all corporate functions suspended. Golden Dragon was slowly and beautifully collapsing, like an old building that had been held up only by habit. Lin Xiaoyu under investigation. Her lawyers were working toward a deal with the prosecution. The odds were not bad. She had given testimony against Fan in exchange for reduced charges. The system worked exactly that way. I was sitting in a cafe on Huaihai Road. Not that restaurant, another place, quiet, without memories, drinking coffee, watching the street. Wei Mei had sent a report in the morning, after the unfreezing of accounts and return of assets under judicial preservation measures, total assets approximately 450 million. After operational expenses of the past months, 431 million yuan. Half a year ago, 847. I thought about this number, not with triumph. No, simply looked at it as a fact. 847 yuan in the hospital, with 3 broken ribs. And here now, between these 2 points, an alley, a hospital, uncle's postcard, Wei Mei, the black book, Li Boyan, 3 Beans coffee shop, Wang turning green, the forum, timers, percentages, 29 days of penalty for impatience, day 31 when Fan looked at me in the hall and understood he had lost. The cafe door opened. Lin Xiaoyu. I hadn't expected this. She came to my table, no call, no arrangement, in ordinary clothes, not a business suit, not an evening dress. Jeans, a gray sweater, without the professional hairdo, hair pinned up simply, quickly, without the 50,000 yuan mask. She stood before the table and looked at me. I didn't stand, didn't call the waiter, simply looked. Sit down, I said at last. She sat, clasped her hands on the table. Was silent for a long time. Xiaohui must not suffer, she said. She knew nothing. The document she was signing, she thought it was ordinary work. If the investigation, I know, I said. You can confirm. I already confirmed. A week ago, I gave testimony that Lin Xiaohui acted without awareness of the nature of the operations. I looked at her. The investigator accepted it. She is beyond suspicion. Lin looked at me. Something in her face, very small, very quiet, changed. Not gratitude, not relief. Something deeper and more complex. Something that had perhaps always been there under all the layers of roles and schemes, but had never had a way out. Why, she asked. Because she is an honest person, I said. Silence. And I looked at her for a long time. You are a very intelligent person who chose the wrong side, I said. That is different. She nodded, slowly, stood. The system blinked. New opponent? Activate? I watched her leaving. The ordinary jeans and gray sweater. The way she stopped at the door, spent a second not leaving, and then left. No. Activation. Cancelled. Good. Some stories must end, not continue. Wei Mei's office. She was waiting for me. You could see she had been waiting, something in how she sat at her desk, straight, composed, like a person with an important message. Found it? I asked. Yes. I sat across from her. The laptop was open, screen facing me. On the screen, the last page of Uncle Wei's archive, the one we hadn't opened. It had been stored in a separate encrypted folder. The password Wei Mei had only found now, at the end of this story. Uncle had left it in the form of a cipher, an old children's game he and she used to play, she said. She had solved it last night. On the screen was a folder with one name I read for a long time, then leaned back in my chair, looked at the ceiling. Wei Mei was silent, waiting. Do you understand what this means? I asked. I understand, she said. Silence. The system appeared before my eyes quietly, without announcement. Opponent identified. Level. State. Probability of win, 3%. 3%, 3. I stared at that number for a long time. A very long time. Uncle Wei, you collected materials for 40 years. You hid behind fish from Fujian. You used nothing, not once in 40 years. Not against Fan, not against anyone. Stored everything, waited, and for the very last folder, you set a password that only got opened now. Because this is not for me alone. I stood, picked up my coat. Wei Mei. She looked up. You said you work because you trust. Yes. Work for me for the same reason. She looked at me for a moment, then nodded. I walked to the door. Chen Yu, she said behind me. I stopped. 3%. I know. You understand that with odds like that. Uncle kept that folder for 40 years, I said, meaning it's worth it. I took hold of the door handle. Give me time to think. A week. All right. I went out. In the elevator, pressed the button for the first floor. Watched the numbers change. 23, 22, 21. Thought about 3%. Thought about how 71% had once seemed small against Wang. At the very start, when I had 847 yuan and 3 broken ribs. Thought about Uncle Wei, who had waited 40 years for his current. Thought about Three Beans Coffee Shop, and how 3% requires something that can't be bought with money. Information, allies, time, patience. Thought about Li Boyan, who had waited 25 years for a moment, and had waited it out. The elevator opened on the first floor. I walked out onto the street. Shanghai met me with morning air, damp, urban, smelling of coffee from the neighboring cafe and exhaust from the boulevard. An ordinary city. An ordinary morning. 3% is not 0. I took out my phone, opened contacts, scrolled down to a name I had never dialed. A name from the folder. A person I hadn't met yet, but who, according to Uncle's materials, was the only one who could turn these 3% into something larger. I held my finger over the call button, didn't press it. Not yet, first a week. To think, to prepare, not to rush. The system had already charged a penalty for impatience once. Pocketed the phone, walked forward. Behind me, Shanghai, 431 million yuan, 22 undisclosed names in the black book, and 3% on something very large. Ahead the morning, coffee, and time. The system interface blinked. Balance, 431 million yen. Undisclosed opponents, 22. Next target, active, probability of win, 3%. System, awaiting. I walked through Shanghai and thought about one thing. Uncle Wei waited 40 years. I have time. A week after everything ended, I went back to Three Beans, Tianzifang, in the morning. Still quiet. No tourists. Only locals. An elderly neighbor walks a small dog on a leash. A student with a cup of coffee and earphones. 2 workers with breakfast in plastic containers. The cafe opened exactly at 8. I arrived at 8:15. Lin Xiaohui was behind the counter. She saw me, nodded, calmly, without excess. Double? She asked. Yes. I sat by the window, watched her work, those same confident movements, that same ease. The coffee machine hummed. The phone vibrated. Li Boyan. Did you read Zoda's piece? He asked. Read it? He wrote it well. He knows how when he has decent material, I said. Chen Yu. A small pause. I wanted to ask what's next. I looked at the street. The elderly neighbor with his dog walked past. The dog stopped at a lamppost. The neighbor waited patiently. We continue, I said. The next name from the book? Maybe. Or what's on the last page? A long pause. 3%. I know, this is not a game. This is a different scale. I know. I repeated. Which is why, not now. First I want to get some proper sleep. Then eat properly. Then maybe go somewhere. Not for business, just for the sake of it. I was quiet for a moment, and then we'll think about 3%. Li Boyan laughed. Briefly, the same as the first time in the tea house, briefly and genuinely. You remind me of Wei Gochan, he said. Is that a compliment? It's an observation, a pause, but yes, a compliment too. He disconnected. Lin Xiaohui brought the coffee, set it on the table, stood for a second. Is it over? She asked. This story, yes. And the next one? I looked at her. Why do you ask? She shrugged, a small open gesture. I'm just curious. You come here when you're thinking. I notice. I didn't know right away what to answer, then said, then probably I'll stop by again. She nodded, without commentary. Went to the other tables. I drank coffee. Outside the window, Tianzifang was waking gradually, unhurriedly. Neighboring shops were opening. The first tourists appeared with cameras. A newspaper vendor unrolled a stack of fresh papers. Something screaming on the front page. I couldn't read from this distance, but I knew it wasn't my story. My story had already left the front pages. Good. Before my eyes, the system interface. Dark, calm, waiting. I thought about Uncle Wei, about what he had been, a fish trader with postcards once a year and a 40-year archive, about how he had never hurried. about how the last thing he had passed on to me was not an instruction, but exactly what he said. A tool. Use it however you like, whenever you like, against whatever opponent you choose yourself. 3% is not zero. 3% is the beginning of work. I closed the system interface, finished my coffee, stood, left money on the table, a little more than needed. Looked one last time at Lin Xiaohui, who was laughing at something an elderly customer at the counter had said. A genuine laugh, not professional, just a person who found something funny, walked out. Shanghai was large. 431 million yuan was enough to start. 22 names in the black book were enough to continue. 3% was enough, in the end, with patience and preparation and the right people alongside to become something larger. The system waited. I walked forward. Zhou Da published the piece 3 weeks after the meeting, long, detailed, not an article but almost a book chapter, titled 847. I read it one morning over coffee at 3 Beans. Lin Xiaohui brought coffee, saw the headline on my phone screen. Is that about you? She asked. Partly, I said. May I read it? I turned the phone toward her. She read standing quickly. The way you read when time is short, but you're very curious. Then handed it back. It says you died for 47 seconds. It says that, and that you had 847 yuan. I did. She looked at me, a little differently than before. Not as a waitress at a customer, as a person at a person. Were you frightened? I thought.
No, I said. Surprisingly, no. In the alley, it was cold. Everything hurt, and I thought how funny it was to spend 7 years on a business and 3 years on a love affair and end up with 847 yuan.
There was no fear. There was something else. What? Clarity, I said. Such unexpected clarity when everything superfluous disappears, and only the most important remains. A pause. I understood then that the important thing is not money. Not even justice. It's what you leave behind besides an account. Lin Xiaohui looked at me quietly. What will you leave? I don't know yet, I said, honestly. Ask me in 10 years. She smiled, that genuine smile, not professional. Good. Come back in 10 years, I'll ask. She went to the other tables. I finished coffee and looked at Zhou Da's piece. He had written it well, honestly, without unnecessary heroism and without unnecessary drama, simply the story of a man who received a tool and learned to use it. Uncle Wei would have read it and said something brief and precise, as always. I mentally wrote him a postcard. One line, the current came. I didn't miss it. Wei Mei left for Guilin 18 days after the accounts had been unfrozen. She sent one photograph, mountains over the river, those very mountains, morning mist. No text, I replied, beautiful. Her, yes, and that was all. No more messages, she was resting, genuinely, and I was glad she knew how. Lai Boyan called that same evening. Have you thought about 3%? I have. And? Long pause. I need more information, I said. That woman from the coffee shop, the insider, she promised to tell me the name when everything with Fan was over. Everything with Fan is over. Then she'll tell me, I said, and then we'll understand what we're dealing with. And if the name changes everything we think? I thought for a second. Then everything we think is wrong, and it's better to know that now. Li Boyan was quiet for a moment. Good, he said. When are you meeting her? Tomorrow evening, Moonbridge Cafe, 7 o'clock. I'll be nearby. I know. We disconnected. I looked at the system. Next, take it. Awaiting identification. Probability. Unknown. Status. Ready. Am I ready? 30 days ago, I had 847 yuan, and nothing but anger, and a tool I didn't understand. Now I had everything necessary. Money, allies, experience, and an understanding of how the system worked. 3%. That's a lot if you prepare properly. I typed in the response field. Yes.